Hey Phil, what's going on?
Well, I was just talking about a funny conversation I had earlier in the week for a client that I had all ready to retire, and you jumped on the meeting, said your last podcast episode scared the shit out of him.
And I was going, so we just had this chat before. I was like, I'm going to hit record on the podcast. Why, Phil? Why did you have someone who was worried jumping on the call with you?
Because he told everyone to work for an extra year, 2 or 3. I explained to him that Scott's the kind of person that'll send you an email at 10 o'clock on a Saturday night, so don't take work ethic from him.
We did the episode. We did the maths. It makes a huge difference. If you go and see a personal trainer and expect them to be like eat a lot of Big Macs and don't work out, then don't be surprised if you don't achieve your goal. All right, let's get into it. Our podcast today. Thanks for clicking on the link today. We're going to be talking about what the mistakes a lot of our clients will be making post-retirement. Now, I'm just going to head off the comments before they say, well, what are you two talking about? You're not retired. Why are you talking to us about retirement? We've literally retired hundreds of times. We've worked with, I don't know, I'm not sure the maths, like at this point between the two of us, probably a few thousand clients over the past 12, 13 years of our individual careers. And we've seen a lot of people retire. We've seen a lot of people do it right. We've seen some people do it with a bit of, they could have done a bit of help. And we've just seen some people who've just done it terribly. And usually it's a bit of a mess. So today's episode is just going through those first crucial 5 years of once you've hit the point and you're out, what happens and some things to think about.
Yeah, definitely. I think look, at me a bit of surprise when you've woken up every day for the last 30 years and gotten out of bed and jumped in the car and driven to work, and all of a sudden you jump out of bed and you got nowhere to go. Things can probably be a bit different, and maybe in ways you don't really expect. Yeah, it's an interesting one. Often I'll come to people come to me with a retirement budget, more often than not with no retirement budget. And it's not always that well considered, I'd probably say. Scott, do you find the same thing?
I think people, we're also focused on that retirement date, on the retirement. So, we're running towards it, and then bang, we're doing it. We're submitting the forms. I'm retiring, and I'm done. And it's you've got the land here, you've got the boat there, and you're sort of between the two. Is this thing going to float? Am I going to be okay? Off we go. We jump on the boat, and then oh, okay, this is all right. Those first couple of weeks are probably the best ever because now you've got superannuation drawing through the pension and you're not working. But
Yeah,
probably
I'll
week
be
3 or
stepping onto
4,
a literal boat.
yeah. But probably like week 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 is kind of when reality kind of sticks in and kind of kicks in. That's sort of my view on it. What's your view?
Yeah, well, look, I think where sometimes I see this go wrong is that people don't probably really understand how much extra time they're going to have and the effect that that can have on maybe what your expected budget is. And actually, like, this is even something that caught me out when I went from working in an office full-time to working from home full-time. Yes, some of my expenses decreased. I wasn't spending $250 a bloody fortnight on train tickets anymore. But, now I'm sitting at home and it's 40 degrees and I'm running the aircon every day. So, my power bill is much bigger than it used to be. So, things like that will catch you out. You're probably out for lunch more with your friends, more coffees, more shows, more dinners, all these kind of things that maybe when you sit there and you look at your pre-retirement budget aren't accounted for, that you may find happening when you got some more time on your hands in retirement.
Yeah. So, I think you've got the whole life is structured. You've got school, work, kids, weekends, then rinse and repeat for 40, 50 years. Then one, Tuesday in January, you've just woken up and then there's no plan, there's no rhythm. And where people go wrong, they can be, this will be you, not they. And I'm aware of, if you're watching this video right now, and I'm talking to you specifically, waking up disorientated, losing some routine, the exercise levels come down, small tasks feel like they're big tasks because you've got so few, you don't have that much pressure because now we don't have to show up to work. So maybe the small things that you would really not worry about or become a bigger thing. And free time can turn into empty time. And maybe think of your parents, if they're getting a bit older and you just, come on, what are you doing? Can you just do something? Like I've had those conversations, very active, very powerful parents. And then they're sort of getting there later in life. And it's like, have you left the house this morning? Like, come on, engage.
Yeah. Look, it's interesting. Actually, I thought this was a great idea, but I had some clients that this is going back quite a few years now, but that were really worried. And they're probably some of the first people that had come to me and actually say, Phil, we know our finances are handled. Like, you've shown us all that. We know we can afford to spend what we needed. That's all fine. we're actually scared to retire because we don't know what we're going to do. And it was really interesting. They had this like whole bucket list of things they wanted to do, but just that whole planning and thinking about how they were going to map out and do what they were going to do, they were actually finding it like really an emotional challenge. And I actually made them go away. I made them get a calendar and I made them plan the next 12 months of activities and then bring it back to me. And we sat down and we budgeted out the 12 months to make sure they were all costed and they were locked in. And then that was part of our annual reviews. It wasn't just, this is how your supers perform. This is how much money you've got left, blah, blah. It was like, have you gone and done the stuff you said you were going to do? Did you enjoy it? What happened? And rinse and repeat. Now I've tried to push that onto people for years and no one else has ever come back and done it. These first couple did. But think about stuff like that. I know it sounds silly. But A, certainty around what you're going to do with your time. B, you've got a plan and some structure. And C, it's costed appropriately, which is where people get caught out.
I'm going to go the other way as well. So let's imagine you're now retirement. You don't need to do 13 trips in the first 24 months. That 5-year time frame is, it's a while. It's a bit of a while, and you don't just need to go nuts. So this is going this is going someone who's like over structured and they've over planned and they're doing the Europe trip, they're doing the caravan trip, they're taking the kids to New Zealand, they're taking an XYZ trip to Perth to see the grandkids to do blah 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 blah. Blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, this is fantastic. You've done 11 trips and you've got another one. But actually we're taking a bit too much from the super. And that's going to be an issue as well. About also, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Well, I've seen people do exactly that. And they come back after the first year and bloody hell, Phil, we're exhausted. I'm sick of getting on planes. It's taken over a few years. You'd have to get it all done in the first year. And what Scott's saying, right, and the impact on your retirement savings is probably bigger than you realize because it's not just pulling 50 grand out to go to Europe. It's pulling 50 grand out and now you've lost the compounding effect on that money as well. So you've lost the future earnings. The longer you can spread this spending out over, the longer your money's going to last, just pretty simply.
100%.
Yeah.
So, booking. So this is the common traps. Don't book trips to, cure boredom. So that's like, they've got it. Well, if we've got none around, let's go away somewhere. Let's be cognizant. Let's have a plan. Let's do the same thing when you were in your normal corporate job or your normal day job. You were organizing things for other people. Let's do that for the next 12 months or even 5 years if you can think that far ahead. Going nuts and doing 13 trips in the 24 months, you're going to lose the appreciation of, like you said, I'm sick of getting on planes, like let's try and have a staging and, that's spending more than expected and feeling fatigued, which is obviously not what we want to have happen. So there's the yin and the yang of going too nuts and also feeling like you've lost that identity. So those are kind of the two extremes.
And probably just picking up on something you said there too, that spending more than expected, it is a common retirement problem. There's a lot of people, when they sit down and work out their spending, think about what they're going to spend in retirement, they think about, food, bills, medical, all the basics. But we all forget that, we're driving a 6-year-old car around that probably going to need to be replaced in the next couple of years. The roof might need some work done. The house might need painting. All these sort of things that can add up to kind of lumpy expenses. So, it is worthwhile trying to factor in those sort of, all the things around the house you've been wanting to do for 20 years that you've been putting off. They're going to come at a cost. And that's not to say you shouldn't do them, but factor that into your budget. Your medical expenses are probably going to be higher. Your health insurance is definitely going to spike as you get older. All these little things that are probably going to be more expensive than you realize. So be realistic with your budget. I had someone the other day that came in with a retirement budget of 100 grand a year, which is actually a bloody healthy budget. That's what they estimated, but they went away and actually did a line by line budget and they were out by 50 grand.
Up or down?
Up. So that's a significant.
So they're going to be spending what? So they're expecting to spend 150.
Yeah. So, and just so we're clear, that is much higher than the average. I'm not saying that's a normal client, but what I am saying is that people can be significantly out with their budgets. It's not uncommon.
What was the plan? What were they going to keep it general? Like, we don't need to be specific because they're probably watching. What was the key things that pushed them over that they were, what was more expensive than they expected?
I think it was just general living expenses and some travel. Like some of the travel was probably more expensive than planned, or more expensive than sort of guesstimated is probably the right way to put it. Yeah. So look, that's an extreme example, but a lot of people will say 70 grand and actually be at 90. is probably a more realistic sort of scenario. So just think about some of that stuff. Factor in those lumpy expenses that are going to come up: car replacement, house renos, whatever else. Yeah, it's important. And we'll typically see retirement spending look like a bit of a wave. In most cases, work with a retiree for long enough, that's what we'll see. You walk out the door, you're out doing more travel, more dinners out with friends, all this sort of stuff. You're more active. It's going to spike. You're going to spend more in that first 5 years. That's what we're talking about here. Get into your sort of 70s and 80s, you're probably not leaving the house as much, like Scott says. You might not be leaving the house as much. You're probably not doing as much. Your travel's probably starting to slow down a bit. So your spending's going to come down. And if you're rattling around in your 90s, your medical expenses, potentially aged care, all that sort of stuff could well kick stuff up again. So, getting that first 5 years right is pretty critical. If you do overspend early, the compounding effect of that is massive.
Yeah. So let's just summarize that point before we move on to the next one, which is inflation hits differently when you're basically on a fixed income or you're drawing down on income. Before you're able to negotiate a pay rise or work a bit harder. In retirement, you don't have that luxury. Hopefully your portfolios are resilient to inflation. So as inflation goes up, they also go up. Fingers crossed. Insurances spike, like you said. There's those rising medical costs, which I touched on the last episode. And I'll just point out that, yes, Medicare does pay for a lot of it, but at the same time, there is also a lot of ancillary services that you're going to be that you'll be paying for, especially if you've got things that are not covered by, say, Medicare, like any additional services, like if you need a carer or whatever it is, if you need assistance, drugs that aren't on the list, or if you want to try some therapeutics that you think are going to help but aren't on them. So those types of things, it's very, very handy to have a surplus budget to look after yourself so you can provide for it. What's the go about, like, your thoughts on boredom spending, Phil, the silent retirement killer? What do you reckon?
Oh, look, I'd be the worst for it. I reckon if I was retired, especially in that first 5 years, and I haven't got bored of fishing yet, the amount of money I'd burn through in fishing lures would be ridiculous. Even just sitting around having a scroll on Marketplace on my shocker for it. I can only imagine what
If
it was like.
anyone's wondering, over Phil's left hand shoulder here, there's a bunch of guitars that cycle through different marketplace buys.
Yeah.
Where is it?
So I'm
Yeah.
bad enough when I'm that busy I can't scratch myself. So I can't imagine what I'd be like when I've got some time on my hands. So I mean, it's a real problem. Thankfully my wife's here to yell at me. So look, it is something to be worried.
I'm going to throw a somewhat controversial one at you. What's your thoughts on grandkids gifts and grandkids? Keep giving and keep giving and keep giving. What's your hot take on that one?
Retirement planning and what you do with your money when you get to retirement is 100% needs to be about you first. So it's that old adage that we hear trotted out all the time: put your own oxygen mask on before you put anyone else's on. All right. So that's my first thought. If you can afford to do it and everything else is taken care of and you want to spoil the grandkids, fine, go nuts. But also, man, as a parent, shit, I don't want them spoiled too. So I got enough crap.
Yeah, I think it's so hard, right? Because, like, on the one hand, you want to give them everything, and you're in a position to do so because you've got the time, you've got the funds. But this podcast is that first 5 years, right? That's what we're thinking here, right? So, this is great. We've worked so hard. We've done everything right. We've worked with you as a client. We've built up your superannuation balance. You're flying, and then you hit the go button. You hit retirement, and then, like, 2 years in, you're just like, oh, they've turned 18. We're going to pay for their trip to Europe. Okay, well, they've got a car. Or maybe they hit their car, or maybe they want to move to Sydney. Look, the best thing you can possibly do in our view is give them the time and love that we all do.
Yep.
I'm going to flag it, which is, if it's a genuine importance, include it in the budget.
Yep.
But we've got to remember this is a 30-year time frame. We've just touched on how inflation can hurt, health costs
Unexpected
can hurt.
expenses.
It's pretty easy to keep traveling, and then now we're starting to give kids Anyway, I'm flagging it. I don't want to labor it anymore, but it's a thing.
Yeah, look, it touches on a really important point though, and something else I've seen a lot, and that is, particularly when I worked for the government super fund, and there was a lot of old defined benefit accounts around that were worth quite a lot of money, and I'd have some clients that they'd been working for the government for 40 years. And maybe they were only, they were earning 70 grand a year, something like that. So they've had 70 grand a year to live off for all this time. But because they'd been there for so long in such a good scheme, they get to retirement and all of a sudden they're a millionaire overnight. You've got this massive defined benefit that's just become available to you. And it's a real psychological shift because you've gone, shit, I've had 70 grand a year to live off all these years. And now effectively I've won Lotto, I've got $1 million I can start to play with. And you've got to remember that, yes, it's a big pot of money, but it's got to last a bloody long time. So don't fall into that trap of I can afford it, I've got heaps of money, because yes, it's heaps of money, but it's got to last a long time.
Well, effectively, what it needs to do is need to provide you an income. So if we're using the good 60% rule, that $1 million is going to produce 60 grand a year.
Yep. Yeah.
Which
right.
is $5,000 a month, something like that.
And also, just to state the obvious, we're throwing the number $1 million around like it's normal. That's not a common super balance either. Most people haven't got that. It's just
but we do see that
example that stuck in my mind.
It is unfortunate it is unfortunate for the keyboard warriors. It is, public servants, they
some good
pay
schemes
themselves well. We see it.
Yeah.
There's also there's not so public servant clients are not well-slept clients, because we don't tend to get them for a few reasons. First of all, because we don't focus on that space. Second of all, there's not a lot of they don't come to us because they've got the defined benefit scheme, so they're not after the services that we offer around the investment, the coaching, the money planning, the wealth growth. It's just given to them, and they just need to last. So they're not super. They don't really
need a lot of help when it comes out of there, though.
Yeah.
You having your entire life with zero investment risk, and all of a sudden, when your balance is at its biggest, it's just dropped into the market. Good luck.
Yeah, please don't go into crypto or gold at the moment.
Don't do that. Yes.
Right, I feel what I reckon couples regrets, and let's wrap this up.
Not talking about your priorities is probably the biggest one, and I've hit this one a million times. I think I talk about it on every bloody podcast. Same bad joke I always trot out. I don't want to go from financial planner to marriage counselor. Have the conversation. What is important to each of you, because you'd be amazed how often there's not an alignment there. So a really, really, probably one of the most common ones I would say is when I ask people, what do you want to do in retirement? And one person will say, I want to travel. And the other one says, I want to stay at home. That comes up all the time. And it's a showstopper. They both just stare at each other. That's one. Another one could be, like leaving a legacy. Like for one person, they could be completely happy to burn through all their super, as in my view, you should be, and have a great retirement. And the other member of the couple might really want to make sure something's left behind for the kids. So that can come up a bit. And particularly the other one can be, blended families, second marriages, that kind of stuff. That can, sometimes we're still running two separate financial situations, but there might be an inequity in balances. It's really common to see people that have come in from a second marriage. Maybe one person's been wiped out in the divorce and the other hasn't. So having these imbalances, and if you're running separate financial situations, that can be challenging because one person's probably got more money to live off than the other. So some negotiation around that and how you're going to make that work through the household and what sort of concessions you're each going to make can be really important conversations to have as well.
The pro tip on that one is, like everything, talk to your partner about money now. It's much better to do it. Keeping your assets. If you're in a cohabitation relationship that's been you've been together for more than 3 years, as far as the family court is concerned, your assets are mixed anyway.
Yeah. And Centrelink's going to assess everything joint, which can really make it a problem, because if you're one person with a low balance and you can't qualify for any age pension because your partner's got a ton, that can be a problem.
For sure. So talk about it now. So if you're, 58, 59, you 5-6 years from retirement, and then you're like, all right, this is what I want to do. Send this podcast to your partner, talk to them about it. Getting your core values matched sooner rather than later is fantastic. And then you don't want to have one partner like taking money out and then spending without saving, without the other one showing, because you've got one pool of money here, and then that's just going to cause issues pretty quickly. Especially if we've both got access to a pot of money that we need to protect because we're not working or adding to it. So it gets stressful pretty quickly if you are not on the same page with each other.
Yeah. One final one I'll throw out that comes up super commonly would be one member wanting to keep working. It comes up quite a lot. And I've got a couple of clients that I know will be sitting at home watching this, laughing to themselves because we've had this conversation for so many years in a row now. But, that's another one to get clear on, because that can cause a bit of stress. So,
what advice do you give to them? What do you say?
Oh, look, it's just reaffirming, whether they need to work. So reaffirming to the partner that doesn't want to work that actually you still need some income coming in, so the other partner does need to work and you should say thanks. Or it's the opposite, just reaffirming that, look, you can afford to stop at any time, so you guys need to work out when this is happening. But really, I just revert to the fundamentals there. They've got to make their own negotiations and decisions, but just reaffirming whether it's important or not is probably where I step in.
Yeah, and I think it's like that. If you do the numbers, if you feel confident that it's going to work, great. If you are short, well,
Yep.
maybe you need to keep working and support that spouse that is still working.
Yep. Spot on.
Final points, Phil. What do you want to close out on?
Yeah, look, I think that having the conversation, number one, most important, being on the same page. Or if you're single, just really sitting down and giving some thought to what you want to bloody do, and think about all the unexpected expenses. Don't let them be a surprise.
All right, I like that one. And then I'm going to finish with retirement. It's not one big decision. It's not one hit a green button and you're good. It's actually a thousand tiny adjustments. So we're edging, we're getting closer, we're getting closer. Now we're sitting the forms. Now we're getting now we're getting the super fund balance. Now my first payment comes in. Now I'm saying goodbye to my work party. Now I'm still catching up with the Christmas party because I'm still friends with that guy. So we're still, they still invited me to their Christmas party, even though, but.
Yep.
It's complex. Make sure you get it right. But if you map it correctly, you're going to have a wonderful retirement. That's actually what we should focus on, having that wonderful, relaxing, enjoyable post retirement. That's what we're trying to do here.
No definition. I think we've been a bit doom and gloom today, so that's definitely it. The whole point of this is getting it right, so you have a great bloody time. That's it. Spot on.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for watching. Please do like and subscribe. We've had a few people very kindly forward this podcast to friends, and they've come in as clients, which is wonderful. So it's great that this podcast is giving some value out to the world. Hope you have a great week. We're doing a weekly cadence, so we'll see you next week.
Cool. Thanks, guys. Cheers.